Sorry, we're just sitting here laughing about the $5 gang bets that almost maybe.
Yeah,
Nah, we're never really
had
gonna
that
pay
one
off.
trickle. I was kind of hoping maybe the empty netter could be his too.
All right, I'm gonna open up the After Dark tonight with the most cliche radio thing I could ever say when it comes to the playoffs. What if I told you before this series ever started between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Washington Capitals that they would be leaving DC after the first two games split at 1-1, Joe? What would you say?
Take it. Sign me up. Let's go home.
You absolutely take that 1-1 and you go home. And then when you actually look at the game itself individually, the game started in the way that we kind of saw a carryover effect from the first game. It's the second period and, adjustments and seeing a team so often. The Washington Capitals knew they were in a desperate situation, and they played like a desperate team, and they did a good job of disrupting and getting the Canes out of what they like to do the best. When you look at it evenly, they had the same amount of power play opportunities. They both each scored a goal in that situation. Ghost ends up getting the redemption after the weird, unfortunate bounce off his face that leads to a rush and then a goal in the second period. So I'm not going to get too wrapped up in the particulars of this game. Bad bounce, desperate Washington team, and you're leaving DC with a 1-1 series. And of course, you update the spreadsheet, Joe. There's another thing that happened tonight that makes a lot of sense.
We should have seen this coming.
Of course. Had I known, another $5 gang would have come into effect.
Canes all-time worst record day of the week, Thursdays.
Really?
9-16. Canes under Rod, worst day of the week, 5-8 Thursdays.
Oh man.
Should have known.
Should have known.
It's all in the day of the week.
The other thing about the Canes, the game tonight, we'll bring in Luke DeCock here of the News and Observer, and we'll start with this. If there was one spot, Luke, where the Canes were very dominant in the first game, along with all the other aspects of domination in game one, the one thing they couldn't really get going in this game was off the faceoff circle. Just not a great night for them against DC. All things considered, you leave 1-1, but again, that faceoff number, not ideal. Rod's probably not going to be too happy about that.
No, he'll bring that one up unprompted. And there was one game in the Jersey series, I think it was game 3, when they got beat pretty badly in the faceoff circle, couldn't really get to their game. It's a big part of the way the Hurricanes play. If you're going to play a puck possession game and get the puck down and shoot it and do all the things they do, you have to start with the puck.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a big reason why the Capitals were really the better team, excuse me, through two periods tonight. And look, I'm gonna pander to Giglio here. The Capitals, to me, looked like the more desperate team. To use the famous Giglio desperate Canes for a lot of the game. And look, that happens, right? This is the old Mark Gottfried line. The other guys are on scholarship too. They get an incredibly good break, an incredibly bad break for the Hurricanes. They go down, score, and they go from there, and then they hold off a pretty ferocious third period from the Hurricanes. But, sometimes that's how it goes.
Super proud team, the Capitals. 111 points, not by accident. I also thought Tom Wilson showed a lot tonight in terms of that pride, right? Like we mentioned in game 1, did they even play? Did him and Ovechkin even play in game 1?
Yeah.
So you knew a response was coming from one or the other or both. I thought he was the difference in this game. Blocking shots, defensively, his energy,
pissing off fans with his hit on Svechnikov.
Everybody,
I
thought they fed off of him. They took his personality.
Yeah.
And again, I've been trying to tell people this is a different Caps team, and I get it. Carlson's been there for a hot minute, but the goals tonight, McMichael, Carlson, they're very Canes-like in that way this season. With their depth, they don't quite build the whole plane out of third and fourth liners when you've got the leading goal scorer in the history of the fucking league. Mm-hmm. But they have a lot more depth than just the great 8 at this point.
Mike, you give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go, my dude, and we're gonna go
quad it up.
We're gonna go quad box, baby.
Quad box.
That way, Luke and Mike can disagree at the same, in person this time.
I just like how Luke is going with a very Spartan room. To not take away from his points, you have to focus in on everything Luke has to say.
No,
I've got a snoring dog in here too, so let's try not to wake him up.
Yeah. So look, you can't tell Luke anything right now, man. The Pope's from Chicago. He's doing the Malort shots over here. I mean, let's go, baby. Let's go.
Went to school in Philadelphia.
He's Philly guy, right?
I mean,
you can't.
They got a lot in common, other than
Luke is like tangentially the Pope.
Sort of. Except he's a Sox fan, so it's kind of
forget it. All right, Mike.
I knew that was coming too. I said, you go back and look. I said on Blue Sky a week ago, before the conclave, this guy can't be Pope. He's a Sox fan.
All right, Mike. We'll bounce this off of you the same way we bounced it off of Luke to start. If you're looking for one key difference in this game versus game one, it's right there at the face-off circle. And I know both you and Tripp were talking about this. When you're trying to get back in this game and you're down one goal, you need to find the ways to create the shots. You need to, the volume is the volume, but you can't get that thing going unless you're winning off the face-off circle, and that was a problem for them tonight.
Yeah, the funny thing is, when you look at the end of the night, the Canes, I think it's going to be like 50-50 or maybe 51-49, but Tripp said it, every big face-off, Washington seemed to win. And those are the things where you've got to win those draws where you can then create your offense off of it and go from there. That was the difference tonight. The one thing to me that wasn't different, but I think made a bigger difference tonight, 32 block shots again for Washington.
Yeah. Yeah, 50-50 is what the stats show me on the face-offs. At least that's what according to the app lab.
Yeah, did not feel that way.
No, it didn't. It didn't. And the other thing too, and we can do the whole. You knew there was going to be a pushback from Washington. I thought the first period, if you're Carolina, you take that. And Luke, you've been to enough of these buildings in these games where you know what it's like. Where I think the Caps fans were nervous after one. You're sitting here going, we're in a 0-0 game. We were expecting a storm, and the Canes, you could have made the case they were the better team in the first period than Washington, at least as far as the road team that has nothing to lose and playing with house money. So the one thing that if you could have the redo, that power play in the first period early, if you're Carolina, you want that one back. Because I think if you scored early in this one and you scored on the power play, that puts all of the pressure and all of the seeds of doubts in the Washington Capitals' minds, and you go from there. But look, Washington, I just heard Giglio say it. They have the points that they had this year for a reason. They're a really good team. And tonight, even with all of the histrionics of Tom Wilson, he was a hell of a player tonight. He was a difference maker tonight.
Can I get an explanation on the Orlov penalty, by the way? I mean, again, my basic ass thinks that's more of an interference call. Who was the Washington player? Now it's off the top of it. I can't remember who it was. But he went in,
Magic Mike.
Magic Mike. Sorry, Majapani. He went in again. My basic ass thinks that's him going into Orlov, not the other way around.
Well, you know what they say: you get the refs to get a look at it, and if you're Orlov, tonight the officiating wasn't an issue because they.
I'm not saying that.
Well, the reason why I say it is because some of the stuff they called, you're like, huh, and then some of the stuff they let go, you're like, all right, fine, we're gonna have one of these games tonight. So, there was. For me, I have a bigger issue on that Canes first power play when Tom Wilson goes the old horse collar tackle on Andrei Svechnikov in front of the referees. You don't see anything. Then Washington on the power play, Brent Burns has a nice hit on Jacob Chikrin at the blue line, and then Chikrin turns around and cross-checks him in front of the referee, and there's no call. Like, those are things that you look at. But then the Canes had a couple of things that were penalties that weren't called tonight either. So, it looked like a penalty, and at this speed, it's hard to get everything 100% right. But I didn't have a problem with that being a call against Dmitry Orlov putting Washington.
Yeah, it was the over the shoulder. To me, you can call that holding. It's not interference because the puck is there, but you can call it holding. You call it a number of things. I had zero issue with it. To me, that was a guy taking a penalty deliberately because he felt he was so far out of the play that he had to do that. How about this one? They allowed a power play goal for the first time in 22 and a half periods.
Yeah. I mean, that's, again, credit Washington. That was great puck movement, how it happens. But, that's a difference in this one here tonight as well. Although I thought the penalty kill was really good. You knew somebody was going to get one somewhere against Carolina. And, look, it took a great pass from Wilson across to Carlson, and he buries it. So,
yeah.
You know what? You come back to Carolina on Saturday, exactly what you wanted to start the series. It's 1-1. And the Canes, they take care of their business at home, which they did both times in the regular season, but I don't count it because it feels like a million years ago, at least one of those wins. You just do what you need to do.
Yeah. How much time did Wilson spend on his stomach tonight? I mean, diving at things, sliding. He took away the scoring chance from Jordan Stahl. That was feet first. I mean, it was just sometimes your best players have to be your best players. And when you hold, ouch.
Yeah, the YouTube comment, Tom Wilson is Draymond Green without any skill. Let's not go that far, boys.
Tom Wilson without any skill?
No, Tom Wilson has skill. Gentlemen, I hate to cut this short, but it will leave me here in Washington. So
that's all
right. We'll see you. Thank you for popping on, Mike. We'll talk to you later, man.
Thank you very much. Give my best to the Pope, Luke.
We got it. I'm on it. This is the Pope being from Villanova and Chicago is actually really delicate news for the ACC.
How so?
Because when he runs into Jim Phillips in Chicago at some point, and he says, you have to take Villanova, is Jim Phillips going to say no?
Yeah, we agree on that.
No, I mean, Jim Phillips, the Catholic that he is, he's going to have to say yes. I mean, that's
Villanova's in. They don't even need a football team. They're going to be a basketball-only member.
Those were the rules. All right, let's just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off here because I know I'm seeing this now in the YouTube comments. Here we go. Another person like me who's like, hey, what's up with that Orlov penalty? But we covered that one in the YouTube comments. Yes, there it is. It is time for the Brent Burns discourse, ladies and gentlemen. Burns looked washed tonight. This one is just for you, Luke. I know you love these from Jansen. What up, Jansen? How you doing, man? Two things can be true at once. One-on-one coming home is great. Nikishin should be drawing in on Saturday. That was for you, Luke. I know you love those comments.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, as there's other people who are more anti-Nikishin. I don't want to say anti-Nikishin, more amused by the Nikishin comments. I'll leave it at this. This is what Rob Brindamore said the other day when he was asked. I'm going to paraphrase. Is there any chance Nikishin could draw in? Brindamore, he doesn't even speak the language. That was basically the tone of the conversation. Look, we know Rob Brindamore is not taking Brent Burns out unless Brent Burns has 2 broken legs.
Right.
They will splint him together with popsicle sticks if they have to. You are just, as a fan, regardless of how you feel about it, are going to have to accept that is not going to change. And it's like the weather. You're just gonna you're just gonna have to deal with it. Brent Burns is not coming out. All right. I'm not gonna say that. We have seen this occasionally in the past, but it has to get to a level that's so extravagant that even Brindamore is forced. Is his hand is forced. We're not there yet.
Yeah, from Scott on the YouTube comments, disappointed to see Burns on the ice that late in the game. I understand his role, but he should not be in the game in that critical of a situation. Not anymore.
I mean, look, with Rob Brindamore, you're going to take the good with the bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jackson Blake's going to start the season on the 4th line and work his way up. And the lines are going to stay the same for a while. I just, this is who he is as a coach.
Yeah.
There's things about that are great. There are things about that are frustrating to fans, that there's, sometimes the goalie rotation. And there are things that have baffled me. We go back to last year and some of the choices of goalies in the Rangers series. I mean, here we are, we're still legislating this in 2025. But that is who Rob Brindamore is. That's not changing. Brent Burns isn't coming out. Nikishin isn't going in. So, I mean, honestly, if they had to put a defenseman in, depending on the situation, I'm not even sure it'd be Nikishin.
No, I don't think it would be Nikishin either. I think the answer that you just gave from Brindamore pretty much enlightens everybody at that point. From Josh on the YouTube comments, they were too damn slow from the start of the game, too damn slow off the start of the third. Got what they deserved. Didn't like it, but don't think it'll be a problem twice in a row either. I think that's the other aspect of this when it comes to the Canes and Rod Brindamore. And we talked about it in game 1 with resiliency and things like that. They'll find a way to bounce back. They don't put up back-to-back games like that. Did they start a little bit slow in the first? I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't know about all that, if you will, if we're going to go full Gottfried on that. I thought that the pivotal time was in the second period again. I mean, what do we got to go second period Canes talk here? Because that's the thing that I've found interesting so far in this game series. In a row. 2 games in a row where it's the Capitals who have taken advantage of these rushes to get on Freddie. I'm not going to put it so much on Freddie. Again, tonight, that first goal was a bad bounce with a rush, is what it is. But this is now 2 games in a row after we had been lauding the Canes for how they pretty much put the hammer down in the second period. We saw it in the New Jersey series. I get New Jersey's different than Washington, but that's not what we've seen out of the Canes so far, at least down this stretch where the second period has not been their period.
Well, the key difference there is during most of the regular season, the Canes were a slow starting team.
Mm-hmm.
And so the second period was a response to how they played in the first period. So, and we even saw that a couple times in the New Jersey series. So, obviously they dominated the first period, game one. To Mike's point earlier about what kind of response we would see early from Washington, I didn't think the Canes were like overwhelmed or too slow in the first period or whatever. I thought the first two periods of this game were very, very even.
Mm-hmm.
I am worried about the Carolina Hurricanes power play, even though they scored one when it was 2-0 with Ghost. Luke, did you see any fundamental difference in the power play that was successful compared to the earlier power plays in this game?
No, I mean, none of them were really, they did not accumulate a ton of shots. They did not create a ton of rebounds or traffic. They were all sort of perimeter passing power plays. And, Gostisbehere's goal comes off a deflection as opposed to a pinpoint pass. So obviously, he was in a sort of a different spot. They did move Jarvis up top. But we've seen that. Ray Ferraro kind of made a big deal about it, but we've seen that little bit of rotation with Gostisbehere and Jarvis. It happens sort of in the course of a power play. They start that way sometimes, but I obviously put him in the right spot when that deflection came to him. I didn't love the power plays. I didn't think they were terrible. I think they've had worse power plays, but I didn't.
Standard that we have.
I do think
the playoffs.
Yeah. It's like wine. There's vintages to this stuff, but I did think the first period, despite the shot numbers and possession numbers, I did not think they created as many chances. I'd have to go back and actually break down the numbers. Not think they created, let's say, as good as chances as they did in the first period the other night. And I felt like Washington had some more opening. So I think Washington got a little more life out of that first period than they did in game one. And then, game two, it's really a pinpoint shot off kind of a weird play. Game two, it's another good shot off another weird play. Hurricanes have to convert early. And it's not even about like, their starts are bad. Their starts have been good or good enough in the case of game two. They've just got to put some score pressure on the Capitals. It's really hard mentally, physically, all those things, playing from behind the whole time. And they, whether they hadn't had a lead in regulation since game 4 in Jersey. Is that right?
Yes.
Has been. Oh, geez. Yeah. Okay. I didn't realize it had been that long.
They've won games without having a lead in regulation, which is something that can happen in playoff hockey. Yeah, I'm just taking a half a step back with the power play because it was so good against New Jersey. Obviously, Spencer Carberry has done a lot of scouting and gotten this thing right because the side-to-side paint defense, whatever it is, I thought that worked against New Jersey is not working against Washington. Yeah. They have not been generating chances. So I want to give Washington credit for what they've done strategically on the penalty kill for whatever that is. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm Johnny Hockey and I know what it is. I just called their power play paint defense. Okay. So,
Jason,
it might be sand on the floor. I don't know which one it is.
On the floor. No, Jason,
wax off.
Hurricanes power play strategy, 3-man weave at the blue line for 2 minutes. I mean,
yeah, it's weird because they generate all these shots there. They love these shots. They're high volume shots.
But there's somebody in front of the net.
But then on the power play, they're like, no, we got to pass it. And
we got to pass it around.
Yeah. When they do pass it around,
for the right shot.
For the net.
So that's my concern. When they were so good against New Jersey and I know New Jersey had, the Utica River Rats out there or whatever their nickname is, but I love the confidence. I thought that would carry over some. Quite frankly, it hasn't in this series, and I do think it's a good thing to be 1-1. But when you come home, we know the penalties are going to go their way, and they're going to have to get back on a higher conversion rate because, Luke, I started thinking about this today. The bracket luck is so real. It was so real in 06 too. People forget Edmonton was the 8 seed who they saw in the finals that year. Bracket luck is always on your side. And I think Toronto is trying to help them. Mm-hmm. I do love their confidence against Washington. And I was thinking about this today, just like 06, though. 06, they were a machine to the point that Buffalo fans were whining. We're outplaying you 5-on-5 as if the power play goals don't count.
It doesn't exist.
Right. It's like, you think about it, though. You got to think about going back even further to Detroit. That freaking power play, the Hall of Famers. So, to me, their real path through Washington is going to have to be the special teams. And that's the one thing I would be concerned about leaving there, even with the series tied, is that they're going to have to make an adjustment to Washington's adjustment.
I don't know how big of an adjustment it is. I think they have to get back to doing what they do well. It's when they struggle on the power play, they get passive. They pass the puck around the perimeter. They're static. They don't move. And that's easy to defend for any team. You don't have to be, Scotty Bowman to figure out how to defend that. I'm not saying that Carberry hasn't done a good job prepping his team, but, when they're good, they're moving the puck quickly. They're getting open shots. They're getting the puck low and looking for the backdoor play. And they're getting the puck to the guy in the bumper between the circles who can either shoot or make a pass. I mean, that's when they're good. It's dynamic. Guys are moving. You got guys dropping down. You got guys coming up. You're moving the puck through the crease. You're getting the puck to the ball. They're not doing any of that. They're passing it around the perimeter or the top of the umbrella, back and forth, back and forth. And then finally someone says, okay, I'll shoot, and the goalie saves it. That's not what they were doing against New Jersey. Against New Jersey, they were making plays. They were getting 2-on-1s. They were putting the Devils in difficult positions. And yes, the Devils are basically playing Merrick Malik on defense, but 57-year-old Merrick Malik. It's still, you still have to do it. You still have to move the puck. You still have to move your feet. You still have to change positions, exchange, get the puck into the slot, get guys in front. They're just not doing that. And they got to get back to that. I think that probably is a little bit a function of the layoff in terms of the confidence not carrying over. They were pretty good on the power play against New Jersey. You take that time off. You're not practicing a ton of power play. You're certainly not doing it in the heat of battle. And they've got to get back to that at home. They should, right?
Well,
you got the home crowd.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff is the stuff we're used to with the Carolina Hurricanes. From Tim on the YouTube comments, Tom Wilson was throwing so many chicken wings in the first period, he should open up a food truck. Just don't take him on as an OG corporate champion. No, we will not do that. We will not do that. You mentioned getting back to it, working on things. I understand Brendan Moore is very much rest as a weapon. It's, just as much as skating as it is resting, getting your mind right. But they didn't practice yesterday and they didn't have a morning skate today. Anything to that with how they came out today?
No, I don't think. No, they had so much practice time between series. They shouldn't need a ton of prep time at this point. I don't think so. I think honestly, when you're
not practicing yesterday made complete sense to me. They're already preparing for a long series. I think, we get a little wrapped up. Oh, they won on the road. Man, Canes in 4, Canes in 5. I think the way that this game even played out is what I said this morning. I mean, it's going to be more of the same. It's going to be very, very tight in these games. So I could see where they didn't want to do anything on Wednesday, right? But I did find it interesting there was no morning skate either ahead of tonight's game. But again, maybe I'm overthinking those types of situations, especially when the Canes don't look like themselves in game 2 at certain stretches.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that they had scored on the power play in the first period and one of those other chances, and they're up 2-0. We're talking about, the genius of not skating this morning. And the reality is that's a matter of about 6 inches total. So I think Rod at this point in his career has figured out how much his teams do and don't need to skate. On the road, I think there's the players, if they really needed it or wanted it, would tell them. I think there was probably, look, the other part about it is Washington. It's a pain in the butt getting to that rink. The Capitals don't even skate there. They skate in Arlington. Right. So, there's a lot that goes into saying, oh, they should go skate when you're on the road. Honestly, with the Islanders series a couple years ago, where they were staying and where the rink is at Belmont, I wouldn't skate either. I don't want to go all the way out to Belmont in traffic and no, I'm going to have lunch and then I'll see you guys at 4. We're all good.
I'll see you for the game.
There is some method to that madness.
I figured as much.
919-444-2211. Call the OG Sports phone and curse or don't.
This is from you can text the sports phone if you want. This is from a 919. A touch out of sorts tonight in terms of not clearing pucks, not being able to settle pucks, etc. But the Canes accomplished the mission, coming back 1-1, defend home ice. But can you guys let Aho, Jarvis, and Blake know the series has started? Svechnikov isn't on the score sheet, but he is noticeable out there. as much as there's been a focus on Burns, and I got plenty of text messages about Burns too, like from a 919, Burns has to sit. I'm like, he's not, it doesn't even affect the iron streak, lost every board battle, cannot back check, multiple defensive zone lapses. We covered that already. Just giving you more examples of how Burns has been a focal point for some of the Canes' woes. And it's not just in the playoffs. This has been something that's been recurring in the regular season as well. This is a recurring thing. But to the other
guy is 54 years old.
But you know what? Is it because they don't have a water system up in DC he can use? Those are things that matter as well. Now,
I'm sure that's in the backpack.
About Jarvis, about Aho. I mean, we've talked about Svechnikov. We talked about Svechnikov in the Jersey series. If they're going to go anywhere, he has to show up, and score sheet or not, he has been playing. He's been the Svechnikov has been promised. It's weird where you can see the highs of Aho, you can see where Jarvis has been the guy, but I guess when you lose, things like this become focal points, and you're wondering, well, where were you? Type of conversation.
Was it? I can't remember. I think it was game 2 of the Devils series. We were like, someone asked, there was a comment saying, wait, well, what about Aho? What about, and we were all like, hey, let's, don't worry about that now.
Let's wait.
If you're winning without him, don't worry about it.
Right.
Now you can start to worry about it. Aho was obviously, that line was not great at all times in the Devils series. Aho wasn't great. Svechnikov really picked up steam later in that series. I didn't think he was as good tonight, but it's not one where I'm going to point a finger at him because he's been so good, and he was there. He was mixing it up. But yeah, and give the Capitals some credit. They're at home. They're getting the matchups they want. The key for the Hurricanes is going to be when you get home and you can get Aho out against whoever it is, Dubois, whatever. Can that line capitalize on those matchups? Because that's a big part of why it's hard to win on the road. And now that you've won a game on the road, all you have to do is take care of your home games. But yeah, and that look, part of that's the power play. Those guys need to either take some confidence from even strength into the power play, or take some confidence from the power play into even strength. Instead, you've got a negative feedback loop with your best players. You got to score on one or the other. If you're not scoring on the power play, get something done 5-on-5. If you're not scoring 5-on-5, cash in on the power play. When you're not doing either, things start to get a little difficult. But yeah, it's, look, you get one goal. It's from a defenseman on the power play in a 3-1 game with an empty netter. Yeah, you're going to look at your forwards and ask them to do more.
Completely observational, Luke. I know in playoffs past, matchups and being on the road have been a problem for the Hurricanes. I was actually surprised, again, just observationally, how many times I thought Rod probably had the matchup that he wanted with Stahl and Wilson and those two lines. It seemed like Washington was just kind of like, Carberry was just kind of like, my team's on the floor. Like, I actually was surprised. I felt like it was in the Canes' favor, the number of favorable matchups they had for a road team.
That happened on that. It was, I believe it was the Florida series. It was kind of the other way around, where Brindamore was like not really trying to get Stahl out against the Kachuk line or Barkov or whatever. He was basically just like, we think our third and fourth line can handle your top line. Might have been one of the Rangers series. There was a series where Brindamore basically said, we're just going to roll 4 at home and on the road. And maybe it was the Islanders series in 23. And you can do whatever you want. You can put Barzal out. You can put the other guy whose name I'm blanking on, their other good player. You can put Blake Nelson, whatever you want. Your defenseman, any of your 6 terrible defensemen, you can put them out against whoever you want. We're just going to roll 4 at home and on the road. And I think there's a little bit of that in both games from Spencer Carberry. And look, from his perspective, if you haven't been playing to the extent of your abilities and the other team's been outplaying you for large sections of the game, maybe you do give up on matchups and basically say, we got to get in a rhythm. We got to get in a flow. We got to get our top 3 lines out more. I'm not going to worry about matching up. Let's just get these guys out there and get them the ice time they need. And if they have to go up against the Stahl line and Slavin and Burns, so be it. But it hasn't been an issue so far. Like, you wouldn't say like, oh man, Aho's been locked down by so-and-so. Now I'd have to go back and look at the analytics. Maybe I'm dead wrong, but anecdotally, observationally, I don't get that sense. But I do think when you get home, if you're a team like the Hurricanes that has options, right? You've got options. You got Stahl, you got Kokiemi, you got Aho, and then you've got Roslovic or whoever's on that line. You need to find a way to make the best use of those. To make sure that you keep shutting down Ovechkin. Look, Ovechkin, 4 shots in 2 games. They're doing a hell of a job on Ovechkin.
Yeah, that's been critical. But to Chilio's point, there are other dudes.
Yeah, they have other dudes.
that are gonna hurt you.
Protus goal in game 1 was a hell of a shot.
Yep.
Wilson was a two-way force, and you gotta. So when you get home, you gotta find what you need to do and get Aho some spots where he can succeed.
At the risk of sounding like a broken record, and this is what stands out to me. They hand you these sheets. This is from April 2nd. I look at them because I'm there for AP. I see Connor McMichael with 25 goals. I'm going, I don't even know who Connor McMichael is. He's got 25 fucking goals. I know that Andrei Svechnikov is supposed to be the Hurricanes' leading scorer, and he's got 19. So that's how I look at it and go, whoa, shit. The Capitals are a whole lot more than one guy this year.
Yeah.
And, I think Strome has done a really good job, I know, in the faceoff circle, but you got the Wilson factor. Protus is a beast. I called him Magic Mike Mangiapane, whatever his name, whatever. Mangiapane. I think he's adds a little giddy up.
Doesn't that mean bread eater in Italian, Joe?
Manja something. Yeah, you're there. My guy Chikrin with 20 goals. It's just a really balanced team. To your point, I feel like he's rolling the 4 lines and going, all right, fine. I think maybe at home, Rod could maybe sneak Aho, or Jarvis, either one. Maybe brings him back. I doubt they go back together. But I get back to the power play, to special teams. They've done a great job taking care of Ovechkin on the power play in particular.
Mm-hmm.
But it just feels like here's your path. Like you see it, you drink from that fountain in the first round the way that they drink from the fire hose the way that they did in the first round on the power play. And then obviously not giving up any power play goals. And what did you say, Luke? It was 22 games.
Yeah, 22 and a half periods, about 7 full games.
Yeah, I mean, that's preposterous how good they've been on the kill.
Yeah.
And remember, Fishy gets a lot of his offense on that too.
Yeah. And they haven't, they had the shorthanded goal against the Devils, but they and not that you should be like, oh, they should be scoring shorthanded.
I know, but they I mean,
obviously
they do. Just too it was the thing, but this is how the world works. It's how it's different in the playoffs.
Connor McMichael. Connor McMichael's UNC's Saturday starter.
Yeah, sounds right. Sounds right. I think they're a better team than we've been used to seeing. Particularly, that 19 version that rolled up in here. I thought, they were past their expiration date. Never mind the team that showed up for the Winter Classic.
Oh,
yeah,
that team was not itself.
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that team was not itself.
So I'm giving credit to Carberry. Yeah. I thought he did a nice job with his team tonight. It was a tight game, as Joe said, very similar to game 1 in terms of how the scoring went. I do think the Canes were more dominant in game 1. Did not think they were severely outplayed tonight or anything like that. I'm not going to panic if I'm Rod Brindamore. I'm not panicking about Fishy or Jarvis or anyone else.
I'll just get back to what I said at the start of the stream tonight. Again, I'm not going to engage in the doom scrolling that typically occurs with this kind of stuff. From Cameron, Alex Nikishin, if you can hear us, please save us. I'm overreacting, but let me cope. Hey, look, if you just want to chalk up the Nikishin stuff to cope, man, I am absolutely okay with it. I'm okay with it. All right, Luke, we appreciate it, man.
See you guys.
We'll see you on Saturday at the arena. Do we get a Shane Gillis sighting at the game?
What about an Eddie Vedder sighting at the game?
Wouldn't Eddie show up on Monday?
Yeah, maybe, but if they're here,
maybe. I don't know what their travel plans are.
Siren Sounder, Eddie Vedder, Stone Gossard, Jeff Ament, the other guy,
Mookie Blaylock.
See you guys
later. No, if Eddie was to do the siren on one of those nights, you replace the actual siren noise with an Eddie Vedder Jarl.
All right, so I'm going to break a little bit of news here. I know at least one of the siren sounders on Monday.
Yeah,
so you'll know who it is because they texted me and they were like, I almost don't want to be the one who opens the game because people are gonna want Eddie Vedder or some sort of Pearl Jam.
Not me.
Or all of them. But not me.
Not me. All right.
It was funny. He was listening to the Doug conversation and he's like, well, and you were like, well, I know. Everyone knows how they rank them. He was like, oh, hold on.
Wait a minute. Did I get the call?
Still an honor.
Hey, it's still an honor. Look, I'll put it this way, Joe. If you or I ever sound the siren, I've done it once. You have not done it.
Mm-mm.
I have done it once. If we get an opportunity to do it, just know where we were in the ranking order.
Oh, third period.
Not like we're talking like we'd have to be 5 overtimes for us to get somewhere in the vicinity of, like, Aaron Ward's already done it twice at that point.
I feel like he's the overtime fallback.
He's usually the overtime fallback. They'll usually get Shane Willis out there
or
too.
Stormy.
Or Stormy will do it or something like that. We're gonna be way, way, way low on that. All of our After Darks brought to you by Bloomin' Blinds. Check them out, 919-980-9815. You can go to bloominblinds.com. Just take that G out of Bloomin'. It's just with the N, bloominblinds.com. But call them directly here local. Chris is going to help you out. 919-980-9815. Something as simple as repair.
I was going to say, don't sleep on the repairs.
Repair is crucial here. They could do repairs.
Or get some sleep. Get yourself those room darkenings.
Trust me, man. I am
hit a button.
It
works from your phone too.
I'm in a sleep deficit right now with this week, so I could use some blackout shades and whatnot. They can do all these things, automation included. Bloomin' Blinds has you covered. So hit them up, 919-980-9815. To the YouTube comment sections, I did play the OG Sports Phone jingle. Scott pointing out, I guess I missed this conversation. Does Hayes believe that the Sports Phone jingle has to be sped up a little bit?
Yeah, he's
apparently Scott says I can only listen to it 1.5 times or higher on the podcast. From Little Robbie, Sports Phone jingle at 1.75 is top tier. You guys are sickos. Straight sickos.
I mean, it is our top jingle.
From Josh, 1.4. Again, all this stuff. I was talking to my guy Dan, and he did not realize that he had accidentally put his podcast player at like 1.3 or 1.4. And when he actually caught it on YouTube one time, he goes, "You guys sounded." And then I realized I had accidentally been listening to the podcast at a higher speed. I don't know how you do it. My brother listens at 1.5. I've listened to it in the car with him, and it gives me anxiety.
Our guy Aaron Beard does that too. 1.5.
I just, sickos, man.
Hey, you know what though? They listen,
and we love that. Yeah, thank you. I don't have it in front of me. Somebody had sent. Sorry, I'm looking at the text messages from my 252. Tom Wilson wears children's underwear. Okay.
Seems aggressive.
Very aggressive. Very aggressive. We got a text from a 757. They had brought a Positive Vibes Only koozie into the building.
Oh,
cursing over what we spent on these tickets. Go Cans. And I'm just like, man, they better win tonight with that koozie. Unfortunately, not the case. Not the case.
Just don't do it on Thursday. We've learned.
From Andy. Tom Wilson eats corn the long way.
You don't get this anywhere else.
No, reinventing the post game on YouTube here on Ovies and Giglio. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up. Again, big thanks to Bloomin' Blinds. Call them 919-980-9815. We'll be back for an OG mailbag tomorrow on the YouTube and the podcast.